Okay, I'm delighted to say I'm joined here by former Munster coach Rob Penney. Rob Penney, current Waratahs coach. Congratulations, Rob.
Thanks, Owen. Appreciate that.
How do you feel about this job? Is this something you've been eyeing up for a while? I saw you linked to the job about a month ago, so I presume it's been some time in the making.
Yeah, it's like all those sorts of positions, they take a wee bit of time to get a detail sorted out, but very fortunate to be in the mix and just wrapped to get the opportunity to coach back at super level again. And I'm really passionate still about the game and still about coaching. So hopefully, we can really get that organisation humming.
What's the thing you love most about coaching?
Well, I love the game first and foremost, and I love to see young men achieving their goals. So obviously, there's a bit of, not obviously, but I guess live my life a little bit vicariously through the actions of the players and get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing them achieve their goals, as I said. And there's a brand of rugby that excites me. It's when people are working hard and playing for each other and seeking space and showing their skills and exhibiting, I guess, the wider range of skills that the game allows players to show off in the right environment and the right context when everything's functioning well. And you get those moments don't come along very often, but when they do, it's really special. And that's, I guess, what you're searching for as a coach, which what I like to try to search for as a coach is working on a strategy, developing the skills, developing the knowledge and the confidence and the ability of the boys to really challenge themselves and push on.
And would the Waratahs at the moment be an organisation that kind of fits that mould already?
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, they are. Historically, they've had a massive reputation of being a team that enjoys using the ball. They've had some obviously world-class players go through their organisation and have been at the forefront of a free-flowing brand of freedom of expression, and it's really embraced. And what's special a bit, I guess, around the Sydney area is the climate is conducive to boys throwing a ball around.
Which brings me to my next point, the contrast between there and Ireland, where the climate is not conducive. It's interesting looking at, say, a team like Munster at the moment, where it is a Springbok in charge of the team, playing sometimes the Springbok way. In terms of your own philosophy, if you were to go in back as Munster head coach right now, would that be at odds with your own coaching philosophy?
I wouldn't go into Munster and change my philosophy.
Yeah.
You look at people like Andrew Conway and Earlsey and the front rowers tomorrow, and they were all there and coming through when I was there, and Killer's a really good ball player. Niall Scannell, he's a smart rugby player. John Ryan is a very good ball player, and the two boys on the edge, on the outside, geez, they're exciting. They're great machines. So there's five of the lads, and obviously you've got Peter O'Mahony, who's been a massive stalwart for Munster and Ireland, all capable of playing a variety of styles. And that's obviously what you want. I mean, what you want is your ability to go, when the opportunity is there to attack in a certain way, you want to have a skill set and a confidence and a knowledge to be able to attack that way. When your back's against the wall, when the conditions are difficult, you also want to be able to be proactive and just go, we're going to dominate this game through this aspect. But you don't want to be, putting all your eggs in one basket all the time. Sure. I think that variety is the key, and it's just being, I guess, able to educate the players, give them confidence, and then unleash them with the confidence that they've got the ability to make those decisions and play a variety of styles.
It's interesting you say that. In the week that was the analysis of Ireland after the Japan game, Andy Dunn was on the show with us during the week saying that it was a game that showed Joe Schmidt abandoning elements of his usual game plan, but it was the wrong time to do it. I'm not sure whether you go along with that analysis.
Look, Connor is such an important member, and they shut down the fringe as well, and then when they got the ball, they sped the tempo up a bit, put the Irish boys under a bit of pressure. I wonder, whether there's been a big dent in confidence after the English match. It just happened at a really bad time for the boys, and they crawled their way back, obviously, and had some good performances and outcomes against Wales, the lead-in. But I just wonder, after the, that English performance where that was obviously very challenging, there's a little dip in the confidence, and that tends to make teams go a bit narrower and hold on to the ball when possibly offloads are on, and then all of a sudden the pressure of that game sort of compounded. And there's an opportunity to learn massively from that. And Joe's smart, we know that, and he'll be analysing what's required to make a shift. They get Sexton back in the 10. That'll make a massive difference. And I'm sure getting a good performance out of them tomorrow, and then down in Fukuoka against Samoa, and just depends on how Japan go and who plays who in the quarters. I don't think there's any doubt that Ireland are going to get there, and it's just a matter of what sort of nick they are mentally in when that opportunity occurs.
It's interesting that you mentioned the confidence aspect, because when you look at Ireland's first 20 minutes against Japan at the weekend, particularly personified by Jack Carty, it looked like there was confidence oozing out of every single pore of every single player, and then it just disappeared. So I do wonder if you're onto something there, that there was just some sort of residual lack of confidence that sort of manifested itself midway through that first half.
It's such an important aspect of the game, the Irish psyche is such that it's built around, the passion, but the passion generally is built on the negative aspects of life, the underdog characteristic. And they came into this tournament as the world top ranking, and that probably didn't rest easy with a few.
No.
And that's a learning. That's a massive learning, and I think Steve Hansen obviously alluded to that leading into the World Cup by throwing some grenades in about, it's a different pressure being number one. So all those subtle little nuances create a degree of pressure, and I'm sure though that they're dealing with it internally, and they just got to put that behind them. There's enough talent in there to really get back on track. They've got 2 games that they should win convincingly now and get that confidence level back. And as I say, it's going to depend on Japan really who Ireland play.
It's interesting that you tap into the Irish psyche there, because you're actually probably better placed than anybody in Ireland to actually say it, because you've seen it from the outside looking in, you've been there for a while. Is it too negative sometimes, the way Irish people think, the way the media behaves, the way supporters behave?
Look, it's a fantastic little country. It's a lot like New Zealand in a lot of ways, and you get a bit of it's almost small man syndrome, you want to be the underdog, and it gives you a bit of a motivation in a negative context. I do believe that there is some benefits in playing for the love of the game and for the joy and for the expression that allows, rather than these buggers hate us and we've got to smash them because we don't like them either.
Sure.
And as I guess I'm of a generation that played that way through, hate the opposition. And as I came through my coaching career, it was very obvious, and it's the same in Ireland too, I found, is that because there's a much greater interaction between players socially, it's hard to say to a Munster boy that may have come from Leinster, we've got to hate Leinster. It just doesn't ring a bell, because he's a good mate with him, and they play international rugby together. So there are elements of that don't work motivationally, and as we know, hate and anger are a very short-term motivator, whereas love is a very powerful long-term motivator.
Yeah.
So it's just about, I can't comment on the Irish psyche. I've got some great friends in Ireland still, and we communicate, and they often talk and take the piss out of themselves around that sort of stuff.
We're good at being self-deprecating.
Absolutely, absolutely you are. And part of that is you're surrounded by some massive nations and very powerful nations, and you probably don't think of yourself in the same ilk as them, and it's just a bit. I'm not saying everyone, but it's just part of the Irish psyche, and when you're looking at it from the outside in, you do see that, and it is part of what makes Irish special as well. There's no real cockiness. Everyone's down to earth, genuine people, lovely culture to be a part of. I was lucky enough to live there for a couple of years and loved it. But we're talking about motivation and long-term motivation, and there are elements that I'm sure Joe's working hard to try to keep the boys up and excited and confident.
It's interesting that you mentioned the fact that Leinster players sometimes move to Munster or vice versa. It happens the way of the former more usually, especially at the moment. And Joey Carberry obviously moving to Munster was a big story, obviously, back home. Do you think that rivalry between Munster and Leinster gets eroded a little bit by migration of players from within their own province to a rival province?
No, I don't. I think, no, fundamentally, it's like, I guess, in a southern hemisphere context, it would be Canterbury-Auckland. We had a lot of Canterbury boys come to Auckland. A few went up there, but most of them came to us. The rivalry is still as passionate and as vibrant as ever. And that, Munster-Leinster, the games don't get any better. Like having lucky enough to coach a couple of those and just wonderful occasions. Those boys that come into Munster from Leinster, they get embraced, which is wonderful. They become Munster men very quickly, but they'll still have relations and friends up there, and that they'll be dealing with. So within the team and the squad itself, it's just how you temper your language around making sure that you're not offending anyone with what you're talking about as you head into those big fixtures. And it's an interesting discussion. Yeah,
it's been a very interesting few years for Munster. Like after you departed, obviously you had the terrible death of Anthony Foley. It was a period of recovery after that, and then a couple of years later, or a year later, Razzie Erasmus getting poached by the Springboks, and now Johan van Graan is in. Like a lot has happened at Munster since you've left. What's your take on where they are and the direction that they're going in as a province?
Yeah, like tragic. Axel and his family, and I really desperately hope that the boys are coping well, but I guess there's been a massive amount of exterior influences on the Munster environment that haven't helped with the continuity and the consistency. They've had obviously some great input from Arasi, and he took them down a different pathway. And after Axel departed, and Felix, was a really good young developing coach, and had reins on the attack, and now obviously Rassie and Felix have gone. Jer Flannery's gone now as well, so there's another group of coaches coming in and having to re-establish. They've got off to a good start this year though, so that was positive. Ospreys, I think, was a good win the other night. So it hasn't been easy, and my thoughts go out to Garrett Fitzgerald as well. Like he's been on the periphery a little bit for the last 18 months or so with his little issues. So there's been issues that they've had to deal with that have been out of their control and unfair, but also they've coped pretty well. They haven't fallen apart, and it shows they've still got great resilience.
You've obviously got fond memories of Munster. When you think about Munster, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, it's the people. There's no doubt. There's a few special occasions at Tormund Park, but they revolve around, I guess, the special players that you remained in contact with and still have a bit of affinity for, and it's great. Tomorrow night I'm doing a bit of a call for Irish radio, and helping Mike on that, and there's 5 of the Munster boys that I had a lot to do with in the starting group. So I'm chuffed to be here to be able to watch them.
You get a sense of pride.
Oh, massive! I was only just a tiny little passing, I guess, influence in their lives, but they're good boys, and it's great to see them now wearing the Irish jersey and with consistency and doing great things for the game in Ireland.
It feels like a silly question to ask because the Waratahs job is such a huge job and you're not thinking about anything after this. But what is your current dream job outside of Waratahs? Where do you see your career going and developing over the next couple of years? Are you looking to get into the international game?
Coaching's such an unusual job. You do what you do, and if you're lucky enough, other people recognise that you're doing something well, and then obviously opportunities will spin out of that, I guess. But I just focus on the job I'm given at the moment. I've been in Japan for 5 years. Really love my time here. It's been a special, I guess, a very special job and a special place to work. Never thought I'd come here, but once I arrived, it was just such a good fit. And then I was obviously now fortunate enough that somebody in the Super World thought I might be able to contribute and use the skills that I've learnt, from my time in coaching to be able to contribute to their environment, and I'm very excited about that now. And I'm just going to put my heart and soul into that. And I've got 3 years there, hopefully more, who knows, but we'll see where that leads. And, if somebody at some point in time thinks that I could do a good job for them going forward, coaching's tough. There's a lot of elements to it that people don't really understand the time and effort and energy that it takes to keep 30 to 40 young men on track, focused, and a dozen staff, and keep that harmony and unity, because you're in close-knit, I guess, environments for long periods of time. A lot of testosterone floating around. So the fire in me still burns strong to coach, and that's all I can say. I don't know what it'll be like in 3 years' time, but I'm lucky to be given the role that I've been given, and whatever happens will happen.
You obviously leave Japan now. These are your last few weeks, I presume, in the country before moving abroad. What will this World Cup do for Japanese rugby? You've obviously seen it grow. You've been there after the Brighton miracle. You've seen the bounce it got, but that's probably all it was for a while. It was a bounce and kind of went back to base level again. But then this has brought a renewed energy to the tournament. A win against Ireland does do a lot to help as well. So what is the trajectory of Japanese rugby in your view?
Well, there's a lot of talk about it going into a more traditional professional league, which I think will do wonders. At the moment, it's all company driven, so there's a lot of semi-pro elements to the game here. There's some very good high-level professional rugby boys from foreign countries playing outstanding and contributing outstandingly well to the environment here. A lot of the Japanese boys work for half a day, then come into rugby for half a day. So that has its challenges. And obviously a lot of the boys are selected as employees as opposed to rugby players. So sometimes the teams, the balance is difficult to get right. Salary caps, there's a salary cap here, but it's really irrelevant. Some teams, find ways to exceed what would be a salary cap to most of the teams, and the benefit of that is they get to play for the trophies at the end of the competitions generally. So there's a little bit of inequity around the competition here. But in saying that, if it goes pro, which would be great, soccer did it 20 years ago and has been really successful. Basketball did it, I think, 10 or so years ago and has been really successful. So taking away, I guess, the control of the companies and putting a professional framework around the teams and the organisation is the way forward. One of the biggest issues here is, where do the young kids play? There's not a club structure as such. The high school and universities are very, very powerful and have massive influences into the Japanese hierarchy and decision making, but it's not in the best interest of the players.
Right.
And it was interesting. I was talking Tim Horan yesterday, actually, without name dropping, but and he was saying that he got asked to go along to a university training run, and there was 120 boys, and he was asked to just run a training run. Well, it's impossible without many staff to run a quality session. You can do some broad stuff, but nothing really meaningful. But that happens, 5 days a week at most universities. 120 boys running around with one head coach and maybe a couple of support staff, and there's better ways it could be done.
Sure.
And even the top league, I think in the 6 years I've been here, well, this is my 6th year, we've had 5 changes of domestic competition structures. So there's opportunities here to really embrace the game, and as you say, on the back of this World Cup, Japan really need to take it by the horns and drive some major changes. It means there'll be a power struggle, but it's in the best interest of the game, no doubt. And if they get that right, it could be a really flourishing time for Japanese rugby.
How are Ireland going to get on at this World Cup in your view? Where are they going to finish?
Oh, look, they'll be in the mix. Geez, we know as we've seen in past World Cups, and we've seen again with the Japan fixture against Ireland, that there are a lot of teams capable of beating each other on the day. I think it'll come down to probably the big 4. You would think New Zealand, South Africa will be there, England, and then it's who's going to work their way through. I just see watching a bit of France, USA at the moment. France 12-6 up and really struggling, but they can, as they've proved before, they can just turn that on its head with a performance and rip through to that top 4, and then who knows. Ireland will obviously be there or thereabouts. Australia, it's a tough one to pick. This one, because of the I guess the lead-in competitions and the amount of changes there's been in personnel across all the international sides. I guess there's just no certainty, which is a good thing. But Ireland will be there or thereabouts, I'm sure.
Do you back them at all against, say, the All Blacks in a World Cup quarter-final? Basically, I'm asking you, do you think the All Blacks are going to win the World Cup?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how, as we alluded before, how Ireland bounced back after the performance last week. Look, they'll be full of passion and they'll be full of friggin' emotion. But are they going to be confident enough to push the ball when it needs to be pushed, and are they able to take that into a massive game like a quarter-final against New Zealand and be confident that the ball's going to stick?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is exactly it. That's what it'll come down to. It'll be small moments, but I'd back the All Blacks to take a small moment ahead of most of the other sides just at the moment.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Rob, it's been fantastic catching up. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Very best of luck with the new job, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.